It's loading. Now we're going.
Okay. It is 1:03 on November 17th, and I'm calling this meeting to order. This is Public Utilities Commission's meeting. First, the order of business is the roll call. Kathy, I assume you've taken the names of all the ladies and gentlemen here. Second matter of business is the approval of minutes. We have two of them. Utilities Commission meeting, regular meeting, and also the work study meeting. I believe we can approve those both at the same time. Can we not?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Number 2 on our agenda was additions and deletions. Yeah, are there any additions or deletions to them as you see them? Well, I'm sorry, I get that. So the agenda, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as we see it? Hearing none, we'll approve that. And then we'll go on to the minutes from the last regular meeting on the 27th and the work study meeting on the 10th.
I don't have any questions.
Here, I'll make a motion to approve minutes for, do we have to do them separate? I can't remember.
No, you can do it together.
Approve the minutes from the regular meeting and work study. Motion has been made to approve the minutes for the regular meeting and the work study session.
Second.
Second, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Number 4 is the public comment section. Anybody at all? Kathy, anybody on your end submit anything?
No.
Keith have nothing?
No, sir.
So let that. Number 5 is certification of accounts payable. It's listed here.
I have nothing.
You have nothing? Nothing. Chief, Rick has nothing and Dan has nothing. So will we approve those expenditures for the month?
So moved.
You're so moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is reports, SIMPA reports that are included in your. Any comments you'd like to add to that?
I would merely like to state that normally the financial reports are in here, but because this meeting is a week earlier, we did not have time to get them ready for the packets. So October's will be next month, but December is also a week earlier, so that December's will be in January, and then in January we'll be caught up.
Anything on the, do you have any notes on the EV usage for this last month?
No, you'll just see that, again, with the DC fast charger back in operation, that we've seen an increase in usage. So, and we'll continue to monitor those trends.
Good. Very good. Any questions on that before we move on to updates? Updates. Electric Department updates, Mr. Linden.
Yes, we have completed what we can on the sunken ship. The guys finished up the elbows today. On that, the First Street lights have been repaired. They were repaired first part of last week or the end of the week before. The apartment buildings were completed as far as we can for now. Russ was in middle of the week last week. The guys got everything done as far as we can. Now we're just waiting on the transformers now.
So the lines are all pulled. Got it.
Yep, we're just waiting on the transformers now.
Good.
So had a handful of service installs that we did. There's 5 or 6 more to do. There's a new building going up right here to go up to the intermediate and primary school. That we're gonna be doing that one hopefully next week, and there's 4 houses north of the town to do. We did 5 of the 6 remaining meter change out, so we've got 1 left. The electric meters, and we're gonna be hopefully getting that next week, Thursday or Friday, the Thanksgiving Day or the day after Thanksgiving. It's at Plastics. Yeah, they shut down for Thanksgiving for that week, the 4-day weekend. So we have to shut the transformer off to get it changed out. We gotta do add a wire to the meter, so we gotta have that shut off. We assisted with the Christmas lights in Riverside Park. The guys are gonna be going out there today to hopefully finish up the last maybe half a dozen trees, get those up. We're gonna be doing the Christmas decorations in town, on First Street, over by Walmart, liquor store, Rum River Drive, next week. We got some JTNS training tomorrow at the water department. The power plant will be attending with us. Yeah, and maybe you guys can come right here and do that. And then just the normal stuff, tree trimming.
Forgive me, Jerry, what kind of training?
It's JTNS, job training and safety training. It's this month's topic is transformers, connections, safety, and stuff. So we're gonna use those a little bit of cross training for the water department guys and the power plant guys.
So it's just trying to pick up the acronym, because
Yeah.
there's a gazillion of them out there, so.
Yes,
Got
yeah.
36.
And then just the normal everyday stuff, service orders, locates, that kind of stuff. So
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Water/power plant department updates, Mr. Schmidt.
Monthly runs are completed, are almost there. They got unit 7 running today. The other ones, the old units ran already, so them are done for the month. They did a shipment of recycled light bulbs was sent out. The old radiator for the radiator for the old units, it is set up for winter runs. And the water pulled back in into the building, and then the radiator drained down from when the units are running. And then on the little follow up on last week, I believe it was, for some run times for the fuel we had and what we could run for time. On an average day, something like today, we've got approximately, and there's a million variables in there, but about 70 hours. And then if we're running everything full out at our normal full load, we've got about 44 hours. That's good with full tanks, which we keep lining up there, but that's kind of the ideas on that, or some ballparks on that. And then on the water end, the service line and the hydrant for the brewery is in. They're wrapped up. The fourplex up in Pondview on the north end, then all 4 services are in. The Rum River apartment line is all in, completed. It's all tested out and everything's good to go on that one. 21st Avenue project, they're putting in dewatering on that one today, and they're hoping to the end of the week, first part of next week, relocate some hydrants, and there's a new service line going into the Silva lot, or I believe it's Silva, but that's who's using it down there, so that's going to be happening. Got the order in for the registers and the meters for the AMI stuff. We had treatment plants with some maintenance down there and some feed pumps. Monthly bacteria samples were done this week, and we got snow removal equipment all ready to go.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Good. City of Princeton update. Mr. First.
Yep. As Scott noted, we're working on 21st Avenue. We did the photo op groundbreaking on Monday. We're still working on our budget. We have our last review of the last few budgets, plus our revenue streams scheduled for the Tuesday council meeting. The truth and taxation hearing, which is required by statute, is scheduled for December 9th. And then we'll make any last final tweaks of the budget before we formally approve it at the end of December. Not sure if you've heard, but Stephanie Hillside, Our community development manager has put in her resignation effective the end of the month. And so we'll be posting that job as well as the liquor store manager position, because Nancy Campbell is retiring at the end of the year. Jeremy noted that light at Princeton, the lights are going up. I would like to thank the PUC staff for being very accommodating and very helpful. I know without them, half of the lights would be up because they're all in the trees. And so, so it's been a team effort. We really appreciate the loaning of your staff to the city to make that a really great community event. We've gotten the business park plat up to the county for recording, and we're continuing to meet with various interested parties. I don't have any signed purchase agreements yet, but we're hoping to get those sooner rather than later. We are waiting for word whether or not the federal EDA grant will be approved. It was presented to the reviewing committee, I believe last Wednesday or Thursday. And now we're just in a waiting holding pattern. We're still moving forward regardless, but it'll sure help the bottom line if we can get the federal government to pay for half of it. So, so more on that when we find out. Let's see, as far as that project goes, depending on what we hear, we'll start the design work probably around the first of the year with hopefully anticipated bid letting in March, and then spring construction as soon as road restrictions come off so that we can get that done and ready. And Bob reports that his equipment is ready for snow if we get any significant amounts. So it's really about it at the city level. Nothing earth shattering, just somewhat business as usual right now. So.
Do you know when the schedule is for the next commission appointment?
We'll do a preliminary review, or we'll let the council know on Tuesday how many applicants we've gotten. And then depending upon what the council wants to do, you know, if we have any new people that they want to interview, I'm thinking we'll do that on the December 2nd works or the study session. And then there's an internal debate. May not have much bearing this year because we didn't have an election, so the current council is going to be the new council. There's been some discussion as to whether or not the new council, if there was an election year, should be the ones to appoint, but it's kind of a moot point for this cycle. So that's tentatively what my schedule is. We'll see what the council does Tuesday night. So
December 2nd.
If we do interviews, you know, they could just as easily say, well, we don't want to interview anyone because we know who all the players are, and we'll just wait until the last meeting in December to appoint. So
December 2nd.
okay, good to know. So
Not that I think it will change much.
and again, I'll find out Tuesday, and Shauna, I'll let everybody know what the process is once we figure out from the council. I just need some more direction from them. So,
We can.
oh, hopefully someplace warm.
It's not one there. We got bigger problems.
Okay, there you go. Reverse climate change, right?
Michelle, if I could just make a comment on this process, because I was involved with it twice, last year and 2 years ago. I would just have some kind of consistency. The last 2 years was kind of all over the place. with different processes. So I just mentioned that if there's, that's really all I need to say.
Yep.
But,
Yep, I hear ya.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
General Manager's update, Mr. Butcher.
Yeah, it's a very busy time. I realize this is our third meeting in 3 weeks, and so you're probably tired of hearing from me, but there is a lot going on. So I've got quite a few things that I want to make sure that the commission is aware of. The first is in regards to the wellhead protection plan project that we have underway. The RFP for part 2 was issued on October 29th. I've been meeting or corresponding with several firms that are interested in submitting bids for that work. So I do expect a good selection of proposals that we'll have to evaluate. We worked closely with Katie at Minnesota Rural Water. If you remember, Katie was here virtually at the beginning of the year to kind of go through the wellhead protection plan. I've been working with her to file an extension to our work plan, which was due to limited resources at the Minnesota Department of Health. The way the original work plan was set up was we were supposed to be done at the end of this year, but because Department of Health didn't have the resources to help us work through the process, everything got pushed out. So the new work plan, actually, I just filed the extension this morning for that. A couple of key things to keep in mind so that you understand kind of the benchmarks. We have to do an inventory of potential contaminants. That should be completed around April of 2023. Part 2 draft will be submitted to the Department of Health in December of 2023. A public hearing has to be held on that draft. And we're tentatively planning on May of 2024. The final part 2 report will be completed in June of 2024. Final approval by MDH in October of 2024, which means we can begin plan implementation in December of 2024. That is way more time than what we need, but Minnesota Department of Health asked us to kind of push it out a little bit because they have so many of these things that they're working through. So we're probably going to beat all of those dates pretty easily. I think the bottlenecks are going to be MDH in getting their approval on various steps. But just to give the commission an idea of, we're still looking at a few years of working through the wellhead protection plan. I've also been working last couple of weeks with MPCA, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. They had some questions regarding our air permit. More specifically, they were just in regards to our filings of our ERF1, DRF2, CR04, or Quad Z reports. So it's just a lot of paperwork at this point. So I've been getting those addressed for them as well. We continue to work with our customers during the cold weather rule. There are still a couple of customers that have been challenging to communicate with. This month's disconnection is scheduled for Monday, November 22nd. Those customers that have established payment plans and have honored the terms of those payment plans are not being disconnected. But like I said, we've got just a couple that have been more challenging. As temperatures continue to drop on the disconnection side, we will try to utilize on-off cycling using our disconnect AMI meters as much as possible. So that's just to help prevent any extreme freezing conditions and things of that nature. So we're continuing to navigate that process during the winter seasons. As far as our financial audit, that RFP was also issued on October 29th. I've been meeting with and communicating with several firms that are interested in submitting bids for our audit next year. So I am expecting a good selection of proposals for that project as well. On November 3rd, I participated in a SIMPA economic development webinar to learn better how we can partner with SIMPA to promote business growth. And I've been having some conversations with the city, primarily Stephanie, to quantify potential load impacts of new customers at the business park to see what, if any, economic development rates we might be able to offer for customers coming into the system. And I'll continue to work with the city on that. I also participated in MMUA's Service Territory Work Group, which is a forum to help members share best practices that relates to service territory acquisition and annexation. I shared with the group our experience working with the new business park and learned what others are doing just to again, help all of us municipal utilities have a common message as we work with the cooperatives and the investor-owned utilities. We did have Bill Singer, our health insurance broker, in the office on November 4th to present benefit information to our new employee and also give a refresher to everyone else. It's something that we do try to do every year, just make sure that staff are aware of all the rules associated with their benefits. I do want to mention for holiday hours, for the Thanksgiving holiday break, we will be open 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. next Wednesday, and then closed Thursday and Friday for Thanksgiving. And then for Christmas, we will be closed December 24th. In the IT department, we have deployed our endpoint detection and response efforts for increased cybersecurity. We're over 90% complete in getting that implemented, which will be a good benefit for cybersecurity purposes. We've been testing the system over the last 3 weeks and making progress on all of that. We are also, over the winter months, we're going to reorganize our server area to physically separate the servers from other parts of the building, just to give us some added physical security capabilities so that servers aren't just out. We're going to continue to make progress in those areas as well. On the energy efficiency side, Nancy Kelly, our ESR recipient, was in town on October 26th. Some of the recent projects that she has worked on is we've issued a rebate to Coburn's for $4,900 for refrigerated glass doors. Plastic products got an LED rebate of $1,025. Anytime Fitness got a $400 rebate for parking lot lights. Mike's Discount Foods, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony on Monday. We processed a $17,042 rebate for them for interior and exterior LEDs, and there's still some more to come on that as well. So there'll be another one for them. And then Edward Jones redid their exterior sign to an LED. We gave them $40 for that as well. So Nancy's been very busy in town working with our customers. We also have our holiday lighting rebates that we'll be promoting. Nancy, I think, has reached out to the city to put it on the city's electronic billboard. I have a Facebook post scheduled to go out on Friday to promote holiday LEDs. And then I'd just like to mention as a reminder to our customers that our rebate programs are on a calendar year basis. So if they're going to be applying for any rebates for 2021 for purchases that they've made, to try to get those applications in before the end of the year, so we can go through the process for them. Also wanted to mention that we did notice some activity on Facebook over the last few weeks regarding streetlight outages. So we did repost our streetlight out form link so that folks, when they see that streetlights are out, they can go to our website, they can give us a little bit of information so that we get that to the crew, the field crew, and make sure that streetlights are taken care of. So unfortunately, we don't, we're not monitoring every light every day. So the more that we get feedback from the public, that helps us make things. There was also a nice article in the Union Times regarding the depot's new telegraph line. We were mentioned because Jeremy and his crew helped string up some telegraph wires. So that was a fun project to see. So I think we probably have the only line crew in the state that has telegraph experience now, right?
Probably, yeah.
So, did want to mention in your packets is the SIMPA calendar for next year. You may notice that we are hosting the SIMPA board on April 13th. So I'll probably just use the space here at the depot. They meet at like 9 a.m. And go through usually till about noon. If any commissioners are around, please feel to stop by. Michelle, if you or if Tom wanted to stop by and just welcome the SIMPA board, it'd be much appreciated. Just welcome them to Princeton. So yeah, so it'll be 9 a.m. on April 15th. I've also joined the SIMPA Audit Review Committee. So SIMPA has their auditors, and they have members sit on a committee to kind of go through that audit before it gets presented to the full board. So I agreed to sit in on that. We only meet twice a year. Meetings are held prior to the board meetings in December and April. I'm actually open to seeing what Simpa does for their audit and how their auditors approach it. Maybe there's some good things I can learn that we can use as well in our process. So I'll be on Simpa's audit review committee meeting. Our first meeting is next month. We did join the chamber in the ribbon cutting at Mike's Discount Foods and then joined the city for their groundbreaking event for the 21st project. So that was fun. And then we did sign up to participate in the mini dazzle parade, which is on Saturday, November 27th. So the guys are going to decorate a bucket truck and just be a part of those festivities as well.
Is
Yeah.
there chairman in the bucket?
I think there's some OSHA violations with somebody did their own truck to do it. But yeah, it should be fun. The other thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to recap this. We've mentioned it in passing earlier this year in regards to the South Industrial Park. Now that is currently served by Connexus. It is within city of Princeton limits, Princeton city limits. And so there is the potential, if the commission is interested in annexing that service territory as well. There was a lot of work done on annexing the South Industrial Park under my predecessor, Connie Wangan. She had done a lot of work back in 2017, 2018. They had started to put some numbers together, but then no action was taken at that time. I'd like to go back and revisit that. So I did reach out to Connexus the last few weeks. I do have a contact over there now. We haven't even had an introductory meeting yet, but I thought it would be good at least to reach out, see if what we would have to do in order to update those numbers to make them more current, and then see what those mean, bring them to the commission, get the commission's thought on what you might want to do. But I wanted to work with Connexus just to pull some data together, just and kind of see where that goes. So it's all very preliminary. However, we did reach out to Connexus, so if the commission hears anything, just know that that's where we're at. It's all very early. We haven't even had our introductory meeting yet. So typically, I mean, the business park went pretty quick because it's undeveloped land. There wasn't a whole lot to discuss. When you're talking about existing customers with existing infrastructure, and there's a lot of things that we would have to figure out in order to move forward on. So everything's very preliminary at this point, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Yeah, I tried to go through that pretty quickly, but still.
We do have water out there.
Correct. It's just the electric that.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that moving forward. Okay. Moving on, number 8, ongoing business. A, 2022 proposed budget and fee schedules that were introduced during the work session. A point was brought up during the discussion on our work session. Mr. Schwartz brought up, or at least part of it was brought up. We're looking at this. This is what the staff has suggested. We've had some input. Everybody's had a little input. There's still time for some public input, I assume, at this point. Are there any things that we want to look at as a commission that suggested changes came from the work session that we want to make now, so that the final proposal in December would include those changes, in addition to anything from the community that would come to you that would be added to that. December's meeting, as I understand it, will be the final okey-dokey from the commission. This is what we're going to do. This is still an opportunity to make changes and or deletions or whatever.
Or if I may add, if there is additional research that you wish staff to complete to answer any questions that you might have.
I just had one thing, I don't know if Keith had sent me this, I don't know if he sent everybody this email with
The 3%
yeah, that,
on the ACH, yes, everybody should.
so we were talking about the 3% reduction on the water bill for people that,
Correct, yeah.
so I just want to just clarify it for one thing with Mr. Butcher, but so the minimum, and that's based off of what the people that are using ACH now.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I
And
thought.
then the maximum is if everybody did
Would
it.
be 5,700 if the minimum and the maximum of 38. So which I thought that was interesting. That it's really not. It's not a whole lot, but it's something for people to actually use it. Would be for using their.
It's important to keep the numbers in play, because 3%, it's about 3% out, it just seems like a mysterious number.
Yeah.
But putting the actual dollars to that, it makes it sound like, this is, it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. It's to somebody, it could be.
Well, if it reduces our staff time too, by using ACH versus checks or cash or whatever, it might.
Yeah.
It might balance out some if.
Yeah. One would hope.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's
I
the
mean,
goal.
that's tough to calculate, but there's gonna be some reduction in staff time. If 100% switch to ACH, there's gonna be some reduction in staff time.
It's significant, I would suggest.
I don't know if it would equal 38,000, what we give.
Well,
if it,
And I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about that at this point, or reserve that to our ACH conversation, which is a little further on the agenda, but I think, let me look at my agenda.
Well, I thought if we were looking at.
So the proposed budget and fee schedule, it's kind of an overlap there when you're talking about ACH and fee schedules. So it kind of works in, kind of works out. Where do you want to put that conversation? But are there any other budget / fee items that we want to look at before we say, okay?
Well, I got the email that was forwarded. That was your email that was forwarded about maybe the budgeting for the donation.
The $5,000, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that should be in there as a line item,
in the budget, right?
right?
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see, so we're not just reaching in and reaching out and just saying, well, yeah, it's a good number. If we don't use it, we don't use it. And now we've all been educated on, what we
Has that been?
legally can and can't do. Pardon me?
Has that been in the budget in the past?
No,
Kind of, sort of. I mean, our donations have come from if you look at our GL accounts, from the news anchor promotions. When we did the Christmas lights, that's a separate account, and I did put in the numbers 2,500 going forward for that. So if we put in another 2,500, where I would put that is in the news anchor promotions, we would track that, so the commission would know how much they have. And then you can decide at that point what to do with it. So I can add in another 5,000
Yeah,
to the overall.
I'd be in agreement with that.
All right,
too.
sorry,
If you
2,500.
want to-
yeah, I'm looking at $5,000, not an additional 5, so
Yeah.
it's not 75, it's
Yeah.
5.
Yeah,
I would just rather have, when these things come up, and we never know who's gonna walk in the door, if they meet the criteria on what we can and can't do with donations, then it's a viable request.
yeah.
But then I'm not taking from Peter to give to Paul to be able to do that. I just, if it's not used, it's not used. But at least we favor on the good side versus coming up short.
I'll just like to chime in on this. I would like to have a budget number.
Okay.
I think having the 25 in there is a good idea, because I assume the city might continue this, so we'll plan to do that again next year. Where the extra 2,500 comes from, I'd like to have some information. What do we have historically that we've done in the past? I have a sneaking suspicion that Mr. Schwartz pulled us out of the air, but maybe not. Maybe he knew something I didn't know, but
Yeah, I'll have to go back.
is that extra 2,500 that he's put in there a kind of a coverall for what might be out there? Or do we have some historic document that says, we've always done this and we've done that, and maybe we should have it 3,000 extra, or maybe we don't need 2,500 extra.
Yes, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we did ask that question. I'm sorry. The commission did ask that question, I want to say, probably this time last year. So I do have, there was a memo issue talking about what we have done for donations. Now, that did include the scholarship, which we're not doing anymore. It did include, a few, the heat share.
4th of July, the fireworks, did we?
We never did that. They have reached their goal
Yeah.
before we were able to issue. The heat share matching that we used to do was included, which we are no longer doing. I can find that memo and send that back out to the commission.
Banners.
What,
Oh, yeah, we did banners.
Yeah, we did the banner project as well. That was $2,000.
was it 2 or 25?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
There was banners and then the brackets and the,
Yeah, but we also did an actual financial donation
Right.
to the senior party as well.
there was brackets and stuff too.
Yeah, so we did some kind of materials contribution.
Well, I guess as a charge from the commission, I guess your directive is to get a number in our budget for donations during the coming year.
Yes,
I think we can fine tune that number, and 5,000 seems like a good starting point. But if that's way over the top or not near enough, then you need to come back and say, here's what we're gonna put, and I'm good with that. I wholeheartedly agree that we ought to have something in the books that says, this is what we're gonna do for the year. And then, in some cases where there might be something, we're just gonna have to say, I'm sorry. Happens all the time.
from a budget perspective, that we will have to decide, out of that money, how much is coming from the electric department, and how much is coming from the water department. Now, on the Christmas light expense, we always just pull that out of electric because electric lights. For a more general donation, say 4th of July, I would need to know how to account for that. And now typically what we have done for a lot of our expenses is it's a allocation based on revenue. So 84% is electric, 16% is water, and that can vary slightly from year to year. Otherwise, you can do half and half or whatever. You want. But just at the end of the day, I need to know how to.
That's an arithmetic issue, Mr. Butcher, figure it out. I mean, it's not, I don't want to spend time here trying to figure out if it's 24 and 86 or just.
My point is more of a philosophical one. Does it matter if should it only be out of the electric one? Should it only be out of water? Should it be a combination of the two? I just don't know if that's not important and you just want us to do something we can.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
With the 84 and 16, I don't think at this point in time that it really is going to make that much of a difference that we need, be that rigid, on the whole program of donation. The $5,000 that I came up with is we've already spent 2,500, and then looking at the 4th of July and looking at these other things, we can always change that number down the road. So what I did was just double what we already have, and I would expect maybe down the road that this program with lighting up Princeton is going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So that we may want to grow our budget. My point is, and all those things are very viable numbers and issues, but at least it got us into a positive budget. Can, if you will, pot, whatever you want to call it, a line item. So I agree with Chairman Greg that we don't need to get nitty gritty on the tic tac here, but to establish a fund. And now we are self-guided because we know, what the guidelines are. So we have to say no to some things simply because they don't qualify. So
I will add in, so the budgets will change by, like I said, I already had 2,500 in there for like Princeton, so I will add in another 25.
I think it's at the very least a good start.
Yeah.
No disrespect, you're pulling them out here, but it's important to have a number, and I think that's a good place to start. If it needs to be adjusted, we'll adjust.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so then what are you looking for in terms of ongoing business A? Do you need anything from us other than a comment or whatnot? I have one if you don't.
No, I mean, this is more, again, if there are any feedback from the commission at this point. Otherwise, like I said, even if it's questions, happy to pull up more numbers together, do more research on anything. Otherwise, yes, there's no need for, the intent wasn't for the commission to take action today. The intent was, you've had some time to review staff recommendations. Now, is there any changes, any input from the commission? And then give the public obviously some time to give some feedback if they want. And December is the time at which we would approve or approve with modification a budget for 2022.
The only comment I will make is one that I made last week. I'd like to see our service calls reflect our normal service charges. If it's for a private hydrant or whatever it is, they should be consistent across the board. And so you guys can go take a look at it and see what that means in real numbers and put them out there rather than just have a percentage increase or decrease or leaving it the same. Make sure we're charging consistently across the board. It's charges. That's the only comment I'll make on these schedules. So, yeah, Ggr System Study. I assume you'll have some things to talk about when you have a meeting coming up with those folks early December.
Yeah, well, first, just to kind of recap, one of this year's major projects was for us to work with DGR to complete a full electric system study. The goals of that project were to accurately report on the current state of our electric infrastructure, identify deficiencies in the system, and develop a long-term capital plan to address those deficiencies. That report is being finalized, and DGR would like to present their findings to the commission on Tuesday, December 7th at 1 p.m. in a work study. What I'm requesting is for the commission to have a work study on Tuesday, December 7th at 1 p.m. to hear DGR's presentation.
I thought we did that. I have it on the calendar.
I had given everybody here a heads up that I would be requesting it, but we do need a
So
formal
no one will
motion.
make this an official thing.
Correct.
So I would entertain a motion from some of my colleagues to have a work study session on December 1 o'clock. So 7th,
Yes,
I think it's the 7th, isn't it?
Tuesday, December 7th. And I can have.
Yeah, I'm gonna just see what,
Yeah, I already have it down on my calendar, so I'd make a motion to have that work study with the DGR presentation.
and I could maybe Zoom attend that.
Yes.
I should be able to.
Okay. In that case, we have a motion. Second, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
You can.
Well, I'll be gone, but I can,
But when do you leave?
December 1st.
Okay.
Eight. 8C in that case. 2022 rate schedule.
Wrong date on my
Ah,
I just thought it was you know, I briefly mentioned this at the work session on Friday. And, you know, sometimes, because I've been in the industry so long, sometimes I might think people know what I'm talking about when I say certain words. I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of go through what a rate study is, why it's important, and what folks hope to get out of that. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to kind of explain, because we do have it as a budget item in the budget to conduct one next year. As I mentioned at the work study session, the last one we did was in 2015. It's always been kind of my experience that rate studies are typically done every 5 to 7 years, 10 years if you really haven't had much change. And it can be more often than that. I know one of my peers, they almost do one every year. They have their consultants constantly tweaking their rate studies and monitoring load shapes and revenues and expenses. So it can be, you can see a whole bunch of different things out there, but generally speaking, I wanted to just kind of explain what it is and what one hopes to get out of it. But really a utility rate study is trying to establish cost-based rates, fees, and charges, because that is a very important component of making sure that you have a well-managed and operating utility. Cost-based rates provide sufficient funding to make sure that communities can build, operate, maintain, and reinvest in those utilities. And a properly and adequately funded utilities also allow for economic development as well as long-term sustainability for the local community. So then, people typically ask, well, what does that rate study accomplish then? What it does is it helps you to maintain the long-term health and integrity of the system by quantifying policies, priorities, and initiatives. And it really is meant to tell you what the true cost of providing that service is. And it allows you to track cost information. It allows you to evaluate the equity between customer groups to make sure you're not subsidizing one class of customers with another. But it also allows you to communicate those financial decisions and their impacts, and providing a good comprehensive management decision tool. So as we move forward, we know what our plan is. So the more successful rate studies will often be a blend of not just finance, but engineering, customer service, as well as administration. So the steps that you typically see when conducting a rate study is to first determine what your sensitivities and priorities are, to review and revise fiscal policies such as cash reserve requirements, bandwidths, capital improvement funding levels, a revenue requirements analysis, a cost of service analysis, looking at your rate structure design, and then ultimately educating the public on the results of that effort. When establishing your sensitivity and priorities, folks will typically ask a series of questions. How do you want to handle growth? Does growth pay for itself, or are you subsidizing that over the entire customer base? What are you doing in regards to renewal and replacement funding? What kind of discount programs might you offer? Do you want to smooth rate impacts over time? So for example, if you know you're going to go out and bond in year 5, you might implement a minor rate increase in year 3 rather than hitting everything in 1 year. You want to phase it when you go through it and you look at your cost of service and you realize there's an imbalance. You want to phase in those impacts. What's your level of debt funding? And then what do you want to do in terms of promoting conservation, sustainability, as well as equity? The fiscal policies that we develop provide a basis for financial performance and budgeting, a plan for weathering financial disruptions and downturns, a foundation for consistent rate decisions, and then documentation of what that philosophy is so that we are able to explain it to our customers. Target reserves are an example of a fiscal policy that will help determine rates. If you're within the bandwidth that you want to be, then the rates really just need to match your revenue requirements. If, however, you feel you're underfunded in any area, your rates might be a little bit higher so that you can build that up. It depends on your approach. A revenue requirements analysis is really the summation of the operation, the maintenance, and the capital costs that a utility must recover during the time period for which the rates will be in place. This determines adequate and appropriate funding for the utility, develops a multi-year financial plan to support the utility. It evaluates the sufficiency of the current rates on a standalone basis and helps you develop that annual rate implementation strategy and figure out what that would be. Because your revenue requirements analysis is really the summation, like I mentioned, it's the forecast of what your revenue is at existing rates. It's a forecast of what your O&M costs are going to be. Looking at your planned capital costs over the time horizon and addressing any existing as well as any new or proposed debt service to figure out what that annual revenue requirement is. The operating costs that will be considered in a good rate study are the inflation factors, your consumer price index, local economic conditions, what strategic program initiatives the utility might have, any additional needs that might be on the horizon, whether it's changes in staffing, changes in regulatory requirements, the increasing costs that you might see on purchases or materials or supplies, or even what's going on in the wholesale market for the utility, as well as any indirect costs which get into the allocation rates. You know, right now on a revenue basis, like I mentioned, we're 84.16 with electric and water. Are those allocation rates correct? Or should they be different for different things? You know, those are some questions that an analyst would typically look at. Looking at the capital cost considerations, really when you're looking at large capital investments in the future, really breaks down to three different strategies. You can pay cash, pay as you go. You tend to find that that results in higher near-term rates because your existing customers are paying for 100% of the cost for equipment that is being used in the future. So you can get into a conversation as to you want current customers paying for the benefit of future customers and vice versa. That's where debt comes in. It does help mitigate those immediate rate impacts, but you have an interest payment associated with that. So there's a cost of using someone else's money. So that can have an impact as well. The debt would more closely match the cost to use the life so that you're depreciating it at the rate that you're paying off the loan. And then you can spread those costs between the existing and future ratepayers. But you always got to keep in mind your debt capacity. You don't want to be over leveraged at any one time. Or a combination, you know, constantly evaluate the need for debt for large long life projects, but make sure that you align the funding with the nature of the project. And those can be handled on a case by case basis, but the rate study will help you start to think through how do you determine that? How do you answer that question? The cost of service analysis then looks at those cost differences, if any, existing between serving various customer classes of service. And when I say customer class, I mean residential, small commercial, large commercial, and industrial, which would be our four big ones. We have four. Well, we have municipal rates, so I guess technically we have 5 rate schedules. By way of comparison, I did a cost of service study back for Rochester Public Utilities ages ago. They had 27 different rate classes, and so we allocated expenses and revenues 27 different ways. So it can get very complicated as you get bigger utilities. They have much more diversity than a smaller utility will have. We will typically have pretty basic rate structures, but still you want to make sure that your expenses and revenues are allocated appropriately, so you don't have that cross subsidization effort there. That cross subsidization occurring, and that's where it gets equitably distributed between the various rate classes using industry standard methodologies, but also understanding the unique use characteristics of our customer base, both energy and demand, and also understanding the unique facility requirements that we have, whether it's planning and design criteria, whether it's potential decommissioning costs that you might see for a power plant if the generator becomes unserviceable at a later date, making sure that we're accommodating all of those different activities. Rate design then is meant to make sure that you're recovering that appropriate level of cost from each class of service. And different rate structures may be used to collect, different rate structures might be designed to collect that appropriate level. And it really is composed of both those fixed and variable charges. So looking at how much you want to collect via a fixed customer charge, how much you might want to collect via an energy rate and how much you might want to collect versus a demand rate if you have one. Some utilities get more complicated where they could also include power factor corrections because those create a stress on the system. There's a lot of other areas that it can get more complicated in. We're not there, but it is something that other utilities have looked at. So when designing those rate designs, you always want to consider the equity issue, complexity. Obviously, you want something that your customers can understand, what those impacts mean to our customers. But really, we're trying to create a revenue stream that is stable and predictable because that benefits us in terms of planning, and it benefits our customers because there's no significant price shocks. And then if there are other objectives that you might have on the system, whether it's affordability issues, promoting economic development, ensuring reliability, and encouraging sustainability are all other things that people have considered when designing rates. So of course, you might ask, well, okay, well, if we don't do one, what would happen? Perhaps nothing. If nothing changes, then you might want to wait until you have something kind of on the horizon to start to think about. However, a rate study can be extremely valuable if it's been a long time, and during that time, customer load shapes have changed. If you have a particular customer or class of customer that believes that rates are too high, or if you have some customers thinking that other customers are paying too little, that can help. If there is a desire for a new rate structure due to regulatory changes, due to wholesale power changes, or simply changes in management philosophy. Different rates can achieve different needs depending on what the governing commission wants to do. They can be extremely valuable if you're looking at adding new debt service, or if the utility is growing through service territory annexations and/or significant economic development. Can also be very good justifications for looking at a rate study. Ultimately, the important thing I think to keep in mind is this utility needs to be able to defend why it charges what it does, and a rate study helps you get there. So the benefits, as I see them for a rate study, is it gives you a very defensible basis for what our rates are for each class. It ensures that we're implementing best practices. It ensures that there is a fair and equitable distribution of charges to customers. It's also important to keep in mind that bond markets will typically favor those that have a multi-year schedule to support fiscal sustainability. If you haven't done a rate study in a while, your bonding markets might look at that negatively. And as we all know, an outside perspective will often lend credibility and objectivity to the system to make sure that it's not just the commission saying something or staff saying something, but we do have an independent third party reviewing this. So that outside perspective can often be very helpful. I feel like I went through that pretty quick. But I thought it was important to take a step back and we were working on the Ggr System Study to understand where our infrastructure is at. I'm really excited to see the final report from Ggr, and I think there's going to be some things in there we'll want to talk about. But ultimately, as we move into the future, and for me, that's looking out the next 10 years. Where is the city going? Where is this community going? And where do we want the utility to go? And the rates that we have, the rates that were established back in 2015 might not be ideal anymore. And that's why it's a good idea to look at this stuff on a periodic basis. I wanted to get that background so the commission understood where I was going with this. Is there any questions? Anything that I can elaborate on?
I think 2022 is going to be a fascinating year for doing a rate study. With the volatility in the energy markets, that alone would say we ought to be looking forward. Secondly, you've got the city throwing all these new things at us, like industrial parks and big apartment buildings and all this stuff that's coming to bear just now. should be a flag saying, you guys better be paying attention because the world is changing in front of your nose. And is your current structure, not necessarily the rate, but the structure that we are using to determine that rate, going to be the structure we need to use next year or the year after or 5 years from now? That's important, and we need to be thinking about how we're going to go forward, not how we're doing what we're doing, how we're going to go forward. And so I think a rate study is immensely important, particularly because we don't make our own stuff. You know, we don't have control of this. We have to buy electricity from other people to get it in here. Fortunately, we have a calming effect because we belong to SIMPA, and SIMPA can kind of take some of the lumps out of the waves as they come. But even that, you know, when we SIMPA started to say, we need to renegotiate our coal deliveries because that market's going nuts. And natural gas is going up, and I filled up my diesel truck this week. 36-gallon tank at $3.50 a gallon. It's like, uh-oh, that wasn't what I paid last time. So, we need to be thinking, and I don't get the advantage of planning my diesel fuel usages out that far. But we as a group, those guys over there need to be thinking about what's diesel going to cost next year. They get to use that nice red stuff that we don't get to use, but we have to plan for it. And those are big tanks. I'm complaining about a 36-gallon tank. Scott, open sure tank again. That's a big number. And so I think it's not only appropriate, it's particularly apropos this coming year because of so much is going on that impacts our community. And one of the things that I made a note of is these design considerations when we're doing this study are important because they impact the community. If our rates get out of whack, that affects the work that Mrs. McPherson is doing to encourage people to come into our community. And there was even brought up in a political situation not too long ago that we were way high. When it turns out we really weren't. But those we want to make sure that we're not. We want to make sure that we're competitive in our marketplace. It's not just us by ourselves here. We live in a big community. People right on our doorsteps with their own rates. And so I think it's important that we move forward. I don't know if you have already had a motion to go forward with this, or you need one. But if you need one, I would entertain such a motion.
If I got one now, I could start the process to find an analyst and start on it. I did include it in the budget, so we can approve it at budget time as well. That's at the commission's discretion.
No, that's the appropriate place to approve it. If it's in the budget, we should be thinking about it as a budgeted item. Because for the benefit of the community going forward, we need to have our ducks in a row. And this is a duck lining up exercise. I'll get down off my soaps.
We didn't want to interrupt.
Sorry, I got carried away. I'll try to behave myself.
When was the last time we have done one?
2015.
So
Yeah,
it's time.
well, really, we're a service business. We don't own the materials that we sell, the water. You tell me a service business that hasn't raised their prices in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Or in this last year, especially with inflation. Really, it's something that I like the idea of the third party doing it because it does, sometimes a different set of eyes. It's a different perspective. Most service businesses would do their pricing study every year.
Yeah.
I get that with some people doing it every year. we need to do that every year from a third party. But it should be looked at from us, every year. It should be looked at internally. Because things could change, start changing fast. Definitely if we were to acquire the industrial park, that would change.
Correct.
Quite a bit. So, I don't, we should, I agree we should do this now. I think, having a set when, how often we do it, that might not be something we want to set for sure. It might be something that we've had some big changes. We better do another rate study.
I just think now is an appropriate time.
Yeah.
We might decide in 2 or 3 years that things have changed so dramatically that we need to do another one.
Right.
But that's a decision for the future. I just think now is such a crazy time in the energy business. We have so many things impacting us, the fuel oil, the wind things coming, more wind generation going on in Minnesota. There's more solar going on all over the place. How are those things impacting our buy? And what is SIPA doing to help us mitigate some of those influx? So I think, I just think the time is right. So,
In my business, I do this every year. So this is what I do in the winter time. Go over numbers, go over.
I wish, the businesses I've been involved with in the past have never had a side time. I was doing price analysis every year.
Yeah, right.
Summer project.
Is there any way you can put this on the website?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Facebook, I think it would be good. I think it's just good information on what, good information to get out there about how we come up with prices, how thorough it is. Because this really kind of spells out how thorough of a process it really is, and it's just not, well, I think we should charge whatever,
I think as we embark on this, the community needs to know that we're doing this. And this information.
They would pass it along to city council.
It'll be on the, your packet's already uploaded for the 23rd. I will scan this and add that to the agenda to the agenda packet as an information item.
Okay, thank you.
Already made a note.
Did you snatch this from somebody at SIPA?
No, I did find an example, and then that gave me a kind of a good skeleton to build off of and add it to it and modify it for our needs. I mean, to me, I want to make sure we find somebody good, because, I've seen some poor rate studies out there as well. This is what my vision of what a rate study should include.
It's very thorough. They can meet all these
Right,
criteria that this, I wouldn't want anything less than this.
right. Otherwise, you're just basically chewing everything up.
We might as well just do it ourselves if it's less than this.
Right.
We feel like we've got enough expertise to.
Yeah, but it is a very common thing for utilities to do, because how we purchase power on the wholesale market is different than how we bill it on the retail side. And you always want to make sure those two line up, because it's not a direct pass-through by any means.
No.
And whether you charge a really high customer charge and have a really low energy charge will do one thing. And if you have a really low customer charge or really high energy charge, that will do something completely different. And it will impact people in different ways. You might have some people that come out ahead one way and then, lose their shirt the other way. So it's a little bit of an art, I can say, after going through this so many times, is how do you find that balance to try to serve everybody equitably? And that's why it takes time, and you need somebody who can really dig into the numbers and really understand load shapes, so that we do this appropriately. And then hopefully tell us what things to watch out for. Like Mr. Hanson was saying, is if in 2 years, if this happens, you better relook at this, because that was one of our key assumptions, and that's no longer accurate. And you may want to make an adjustment. So, but you really need to understand the numbers to do
I wanted to hear everything that you guys had mentioned, and I was taking notes throughout the whole thing. I'm not against a rate study by any means, but a rate study doesn't necessarily mean a rate increase. It's just a study. That's all it is. You alluded to some of the concerns that I have, Mr. Chairman. So if there's some repeat here when I read this, forgive me. But some key points that I see, and I don't know when is, but I think the timing of this is very, very important. So we're not spending money foolishly or too often. You know, I don't want to have 2 rate studies in 1 year or in 18 months. I'm not against it, but and just let me go through this and then we can come back and hit it. So the last rate study was in 2015. Do we know the results of that? Was there recommendation up or down? It really doesn't pertain, but I'm just interested with no action or increase or decrease until 2019. What was the recommendation and what was the action?
I would have to go back and pull that.
It's just my curious mind is
Yeah,
is
You
looking
can
for
send
that.
that to us.
Yeah, I could send out a copy.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You know, because if they recommend this and we didn't do that, what would be the reason?
Yeah, well, I would be curious to see what came true.
Right.
Didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Other predictions too, that'd be interesting for me to look into.
So that's one thing. We had a reduction in 2019 of 4%, and I know that was led by SIPA. So that was passed on through. I get that. So that wasn't a work study or decided here. I think it's extremely important that DGR's report is heard and understood by us, and we acknowledge what that new footprint might be before we start saying we should charge this, because that demographics is going to change dramatically. And here again, where you had mentioned some things, Rum River Apartments, Kent's projects with the lakes and ponds, that annexation of those people, the annexation of the South Park, the new industrial park, you know, these things, that this is a balloon that's getting bigger, and are we ready to make that adjustment? Not only just here, but you guys, we got to be ready for a big move here. For that reason alone, the rate study is important to acknowledge that. What is the current life of our bonds? Does 1 or 2 of those end in the next 2 or 3 years? That's the number that's in my head.
I have our audit with me. But, so let's see, on the electric fund, we see the first retirement occurring in 2023. And then it looks like maybe one in 2025. By 2026, all of our electric bonds are paid off.
Do you foresee any bonding taking place on something that's not on the books? I mean, that in your,
That is what I'm hoping the DGR study.
okay, all right. So that's really my go-to point, is that DGR report and understanding that thoroughly.
I know we've been talking about some transformers for a while, or a transformer.
The substation.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, we got another report coming up that's gonna impact that. So as we look at some of these.
It might be prudent to do it in order, you know,
It was,
to do that study and then the rate study.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah.
To find out, you know, do the rate study based off of what also. what-
DGRs.
the DGR,
Correct.
yeah,
So
so
that's why we're doing it in this order.
Yeah,
The DGR will give us our long-term capital investment
Then
needs.
do the rate.
Then do the rate study, because then that can feed into not just our rates meeting our needs today, but do we think they're gonna meet them?
right.
When we start getting bond, when we start bonding. for stuff.
That's my reason for talking about this in this detail and this type of detail, because otherwise to me it's completely backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. If there is, not if there's a rate study, there will be a rate study, but if there's a rate increase suggested, how long does it take to implement that?
So if they're, typically what will happen in a rate study is they may, again, come up with a couple of options. You know, you could do the increase starting today, you could postpone it for a few years, or when this happens, then you do it. As far as implementing a rate change, this commission could do that whenever they want. There's nothing limiting you in that. Typically what happens with a commission like this is rate changes are implemented effective the new budget year, which would be January 1, is how we've done adjustments before. But if something happened that completely changed everything and this commission decided we need to do a rate increase starting next month,
So it really lies right here.
it does. The only caution I would say is if the rate change is something fundamentally different in structure than what we're doing now, we might have to do some computer programming and update some billing software.
Sure.
But if we're talking more just increase this, decrease that we can implement very.
I think from a practical standpoint, we ought to think about making changes on the budget year. But I can tell you from my own personal history with a company where the raw costs of some of our product went through the ceiling at an unexpected time, and the whole industry changed prices in midstream. I mean,
You can't wait for the new year.
you know, they just had to do it now. I mean, the cost of copper quadrupled overnight, and it was like, uh-oh,
If Sure Code 3 runs out of coal.
fix.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm just saying, you know.
What would happen if something cataclysmic happened? We would need to make a change. We can make the change, but I think with from a plan
We
standpoint,
have contaminated well, you know, and we have some major costs from something like that. We might have to make some changes.
It's basically what Texas went through last year. I mean, you never hear anything about them, but obviously they're still scrambling someplace trying to make.
And all those reasons is exactly why we have the rate stabilization account, why we have the cash reserves. So that if something like that happens, we can weather that storm, have this commission meet and decide what we want to do.
Right.
so
We have that.
Those are my concerns, so I just wanted to at least mention that, talk about it, get it in your minds to, that's where I'm coming from.
I think all three of us are about the same page.
Okay.
Let's get it done.
Okay.
And so if it's if it's a no on the budget, this is what it's for. I think you'll get an A on it. So
I mean, if we can make a motion now, but, I mean, I'll make a motion.
But for when?
Well, after the,
It was, I mean, yeah.
after the,
for 2022.
yeah, after we get all the information on the study.
I mean, one of the things is a rate study is, does take time.
Yeah.
You know, just compiling a lot of historical data. There, when it comes to the options, you know, when we get to that point, you guys will have had the DGR report and been able to think about it. Again, this DGR report, I want to reiterate this. Basically, what they're coming up with is our 10-year plan. So it's going to be an ongoing living document. I think it's, you know, as we learn new things, we will adapt accordingly. And I think a rate study will be the same thing. You know, you'll get that report, we'll start talking about it, we'll kind of vet a couple of ideas and see where we want to go and take it step by step. As Greg was pointed out, the rate study doesn't mean that you have to do anything, but there is going to be a rate increase. It's simply to look at, do we see any problems in the future with revenues matching expenses? And if so, what are we going to do?
the only advantage I can think of is having a motion passed today, is that you can get RFPs out there. And so when the budget gets passed sometime in December, you already got your feet on the ground
Yes.
and you're moving
Yeah,
forward. I
that's-
hope.
Yeah, that's
And so
what my point was. I want to get someone good. I want to give them as much time as possible to find something.
I think finding somebody good is just as much of a challenge as the rate study itself.
Exactly.
So that really is gonna fall on you, Keith, to really.
So
I have some copies.
so
So sooner,
Don't sweat that.
typically, a government goes with both in, and typically a little bitter type, a little thicker, but so more of a what's the best. for-
Value is nice.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I-
Yeah.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second to approve a rate study going forward. Oh, any discussion? We've had that. Well done. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Motion is carried unanimously. Move forward, which is your inclination now is to go start getting RFPs put together by 4 o'clock this afternoon.
I have a comment, you know, the rates that we have low rates here, and we enjoy them because of our predecessors have done a really nice job of running this. And I think if we look at going forward, you know, our current customers are enjoying, you know, some of the fruits of the past customers paying for things and the way it's been run. And I don't know that it's always best if we acquire the industrial park. I think, you know, that's going to benefit future customers. Maybe that's, you know, time to bond and let future customers pay for, you know, through the benefits.
At the same time, we want to make sure that we put rates together going forward that encourages that kind of growth.
Yeah,
At the same time.
right.
So the city can say, you know what, you guys are, you ought to come in and talk to our utility people because they can really help me get going. And so it makes their job easier and it keeps us in the loop when there's new things coming up. I think those are both important features. So
could we have like an ongoing series of a program? So when these changes and these things go into place, that this is happening, okay, with the West Industrial Park. What's in it for you? Or, you know, make it a positive spin. You know, what do you get out of it or whatever the proper language is, but this is what's happening here. You know, because people drive by, they, what is it? What is it? And ultimately you find out through the texting and whatnot, but instead of them thinking right away is, okay, how much is that costing me? Here comes a rate increase that means, you know, all these things.
That's what Facebook's for.
that's Michelle's fault.
Well, I mean,
What I'm saying here, it doesn't have to be a full page,
Yeah.
but it just needs to answer the last statement is, and this is what you get out of it.
Well,
And then next month, it's something else. It's highlighting what we, the city, are doing.
as a being a little bit facetious, forgive me for pointing the finger at you, but
I got big feet, I got a big understanding. No biggie.
but the point is, and this is well taken. I think we should do more of that. This is the thing that Dan started talking about several years ago when he first got on. We need to tell our story better. We need to, when the city comes out and says, hey, look, we've got this going on. We've got a new industrial park that's going to provide jobs. We need to be tagging into that and saying, not only that, but we're able to provide these new customers with all the electricity they need to run these lathes or milling machines or whatever it is they're doing out there. They can count on Princeton Public Utilities to give them what they need to make that business a success. You know, sunken ship or whatever. Not only do they go through a lot of water, but they've got the horsepower to run the boilers or whatever they do to make beer, keep the beer cold. But
yeah, there's some things that I didn't understand coming into this job too, that, and Keith's helped me understand a lot of things. I know one of the things with plastics products, they have a Lindstrom plant. I don't know if you know much about this, Rick, but and over there they have like backup generators. Where here they don't have to have.
Yeah, because we have.
Because we have the backup generators. Now that's, you know, the industrial park here, what do they, you know, what do they have? You know, I mean, if we, that's a benefit that we have to offer the industrial park over here. If we take over, you know, as we have a backup generation here, where, you know, there's a lot of people that can't afford, they can't have lose power to the business because of the product or whatever.
I mean, that statement right there, Dan, who knows about that?
I know, that's what I'm saying, but keep,
That's a
I
story
wouldn't
by
know about
itself.
it, keep pointing that out, I never even thought about
Yeah.
that, you know, I mean, that's the type of thing that should be on Facebook.
All those places in Texas would love to have had that.
Oh,
Yeah,
are you kidding me? Yeah, I mean, that could happen here in Princeton. I mean, we can, the industrial park, they're kind of SOL, but.
well, and just think about that for a second. I know you guys have, but if they go down, if it's 3 days, look at that cost.
Yeah,
So even if there is a rate increase, and they say, well, what am I getting for it? You didn't do nothing. Look what you've got here as your backup.
so, in Lindstrom, they got to have their own generation plant, test runs and, I mean, they've got all those costs for that business that are on one, whether they lose power or not. So, I don't know, that's just something that.
And they gotta pass their own EPA guidelines to do that. So,
And service contracts with CAT, and, warranty, I mean, just all those expenses that we have sitting right here available for it.
Bill,
Well, thank you, Gary. Thank you, gentlemen.
so basically, I think you've got what you need to start forward on the rate study. The last thing we should discuss before we get into any new business is the ACH as an issue. And to be honest, when I preface this with by saying, I think it is the belief of the commission that the ACH is the method of choice for our customers to pay their bills. We'd like to encourage that in any way we can. We currently have a wide variety of payment options in front of us. We have debit cards, credit cards. We even have a couple of IOUs, I suppose, but we have people right now sending in checks or bringing in checks to the office. We have something on the order of near 80 people that bring in cash every month, which I find fascinating, but some people do it. Okay. And we have close to 800 people right now that write checks and send them in. So Debbie or Pat or Kathy or somebody has to process all of that stuff. Unfortunately, from my perspective on this, what do we don't have a category for that in here. Debbie posted 800 checks into our account. We didn't cover that very well. So, but the ACH, I don't know what we need to do about ACH discussion, other than that the three of us are all in agreement that the ACH ought to be promoted as our #1 method for getting paid. I asked Keith a question earlier. We already have begun this process of when we have a new customer comes into this office, says, I'd like to have you hook up my electric and make sure that my meter works or whatever it is, and so you can start charging. And we set up a credit app right there on the spot. It goes through electronically, and within seconds we know they're okay, we're going to set them up. But at the same time, we give them an ACH application. See, here's how you can do it. I don't know how successful that is, but that should have been an automatic right off the bat anyway. So as long as we're doing that, we've got one step up. We've got signs, we've got posters, we've got things on our website about ACH, and I think we should continue to promote that. Dan came up with a suggestion that I think has a lot of merit. Whether it's this exact promotion, if I can call it that, if you as a new customer come in and sign up, we're going to give you 3% off. Help me if I'm getting these facts wrong. If you're getting 3% off on your water bill, if you sign up for ACH, when you become a new customer. I don't know how we deal with old customers that are already on.
Well,
these.
my proposal was old or new, 3%.
So anybody that's on ACH will get a 3% bonus on their water bill. We don't know of how's that gonna impact the city on their sewer. Is that in the main less dollars, or do we just go by volume? Or I don't know how that works, but we need to work out that. And by we, I mean, you need to make that, figure that out, how that, just so I'm clear, I'm not doing anything.
He is on payroll.
Exacto, exacto.
Yeah, you don't need to apologize to someone, don't worry.
Just trying to be clear. So I think that's a great idea. I think it's the carrot that we need to get people motivated to, wait a minute, this is real money. I get to do it this way. I think it's much more advantageous than having extra charges for debit cards or credit cards or anything. That's kind of, in point of fact, that's a separate conversation. I think this ACH promotion is one that we ought to discuss and put in place as soon as possible. I can't think of a reason to wait unless you want to make it part of the 2022 year package. All right, I could hear that argument, but I think getting people to use the ACH as their means of dealing with the public utility is a bonus for us. And I think once they get used to it, it'll be a no-brainer for everybody. I made a point to Kathy. I said, I've got a couple of kids. I don't think they use a checkbook. I don't think they have a checking account. Everything's off their debit card or something like that. That exists out there, I guess. I don't think it's, we can work around that, I'm sure. But I think it's the way forward, that we're going to move money electronically, whether it's Bitcoins or whatever it becomes in the future. We're still dealing with American currency at this point. So
Yeah, we don't accept cryptocurrency.
I was at a nice
Just not on my
cream shop.
list of-
I was at a nice cream shop in Texas and asked the lady if they took American currency. And she said she had to check with her boss. But I think this is what we need. This is what we need to do. And I think the three of us are pretty much in agreement that ACH is our method of choice. So I think we need a motion for this kind of thing to go forward, but I think we're ready to entertain something like that. There's any further discussion on that?
If I may, I think this has been a year-long endeavor for me, as you've heard, each month. So I appreciate your thoughts and comments and agreement with that. It comes down to the numbers on if they want to still use their credit card. The numbers that I understand to keep, they're $2 plus 40 cents plus a tax factor. And if we're dealing, in what case, help me understand this, in what case are the different counties at a different tax?
No, they're at the same tax rate. And
Okay.
we have to report them obviously to two different entities, so we have to separate those out.
Okay, so that's an internal thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to track.
Yep. So that's within our ability. So that tax rate, so what we're really looking at that we have to collect that tax on is the $2.40 charged.
It will be on whatever the commission decides for.
But, okay, if the $2, because we can't charge more. I don't,
Well,
we're looking at these
again,
numbers.
I have to, my advice is it's not $2.40, it's $2. Because the way the credit card rules have been set up is it's based on the credit card fee, which is $2. The 40 cents is not a credit card fee. That is any payment that goes through the web portal.
No.
So but it's important because.
No, I get it, but when I say $2.40, I'm not saying $2.40, I'm saying the $2, the 40 cents, the tax. So that number, that total, instead of a percentage, would be that aggregate of those three.
But that is what I'm saying is, I don't think under the rules that you can charge that 40 cents to credit cards if you're not in turn charging it to the other activities that also incur that same 40-cent charge. I don't think you can do that. I'm just pointing that out.
So to be clear, but this is a wacky one. So you've got $2, we're spending $2.40. But the credit card charge, you can't charge more than the credit card company charges you. So the credit card charge, pay attention to what I'm saying here, because I'm gonna screw this up. The credit card charge comes under complete merchant solutions.
Yes,
So that's the $2.
correct.
So in this last month, we spent 1,440. So we had,
This was all just recently separated via this conversation.
well, just to make it more clear for us, and I think it's a
Right.
good thing. So
Yeah.
we had 720
Credit card transactions.
credit card transactions. And if you look at this month's, you don't have the benefit of knowing this, but I do. Because Kathy and I are colleagues. We had 749 transactions this month. And the amount, we had 749. And then we had some refunds that also count. So you really have 751 transactions. We processed $140,000 on that, and our charges are, we pay total of what? I can't remember. $1,502 is what we paid for that. We paid $1,502 to process $140,000, less than 1%. So, but that's what you can charge, whatever this is. So it's $2 is what we can charge. Now, my concern is, and this came up in an earlier conversation, if we start charging a fee for credit cards, we're going to lose this $2 rate. We're not going to get that. We're going to start getting a percentage or something like that. Most other, in my experiences with a company called VisaNet, we pay a percentage. So if it was $10,000 they want to put on their credit card, we charge them $10,000 plus 3%. 2.5 in our case, 2.5%. This is going to change from just a $2 flat fee to something else, another flat fee or a percentage or whatever. I don't know what that.
I don't know, but I did ask Neon like that. They were hoping to get me some information back before this meeting, and they were not able to.
So there's another fly in the ointment, if you will. I mean, as soon as we tell complete merchant services, complete merchant solutions, this line 43, that we're no longer doing this, we're going to start charging $2. They're going to say, okay, but your discount now goes away. You don't get that $2 one. We're going to $3.17, or they're going to make up a new number. We're not going to have $2. So, and I guarantee you, it won't be less. Because we're at 1% right now. Basically.
So to understand your comments earlier, you were commenting simply to have the statement that ACH is our preferred way of payment. Nothing to do with a fee to cover the people that don't wish to go to ACH.
Yes, there are two separate things. I think we ought to be promoting ACH.
But we've been doing that
Yeah.
for over the last year for my request.
Right, and I think we should continue that, and I think we should add on to that by making it advantageous for our customers that aren't on ACH now to take a serious look at get on and change that whole labor pool that we have out there that's dealing with 797 checks 2 months ago that came in by hand into our office that either Pat or Debbie or Kathy or Chrissy have to deal with. I don't know who handles checks. Somebody in the
All
office.
of them, yeah.
All of the above have to deal with these, get them recorded, get them stamped, carry them down to the bank, which I think is absolutely absurd, but that's just me. I think we had a scandal since let them win, but that's complicated, and that probably has a fee attached to it too. So, you know, I hate it when you shake your head. So that means I've screwed up again. Yes, it's another charge. So my concern is to get as many people as we can doing the ACH. That's going to do nothing but save us money. Having, you know, your input early in this year to drive the ACH, I think was invaluable. I think going forward, we ought to make it difficult for people to say, no, I don't want to do that. Because we can offer them a special program. If you're going to be on ACH, it's going to save you money this way. Having a charge on credit cards, that's another subject. I think we should go forward with the ACH thing and never look back. Whether or not we do a charge is a more complicated issue than the life, because it impacts everybody's life and it impacts how we're going to be charged. And there's also a political side to this that people are going to look at, you know, I go to Walmart, I go to Target, I go here, I go there, and nobody says nothing about 5%, 3%, or 2%, or 1%. They just take my money and run. We're in the service business. I think we all, not only are we in the service business, we're a community service business. And so when we look at putting the charge on, whether or not we're just covering our costs or not, people are going to have it. Sorry, my hearing aids just shut off there for a second. People are going to have a tendency to think that Princeton Public Utilities is sticking to us again. And nothing could be further from the truth. You know, sitting on this board for the last couple of years, everybody that has sat here with me has wanted to do the best possible rate they could for our customers. So anybody that thinks we're just trying to screw the public out there by putting this charge on is nuts. We wouldn't do anything like this without a lot of discussion. And it would be a last resort to try to recoup our own costs so that we can keep low rates going forward. So that's my 2 cents. I've been on the soapbox a couple of times today. Now I think I've been, but you know, like I said, I think these are 2 different issues. I think we need to promote the ACH with a program like Dan suggested, because I think it's a wake up call for people out there that they can set this up and it'll work seamlessly for them. I've been on it ever since we moved to town. So
You don't have to sell us.
it's just because it's easy, but I think we have to sell other people off.
Right, but I'm gonna be honest too, and I'm disappointed now that the flavor and the intent of the whole project that I brought up a year ago has virtually taken 12 months to fit your statement that says, well, you should now make ACH our way of payment. We've always talked about fees related to this ACH, but when you claim that's a different subject, little Johnny's getting pushed into the other room and we're just taking this as the header. I don't agree with that political sabotage or whatever you want to call it, because it's not true to what we have been doing. If this is the way that you want to proceed, we could have got this done in February by committing to say the ACH is our preferred way and just be done with it then. But for some reason, that didn't stand alone then. It had fees attached to it to cover the 26,000, which if you take your 14 that you referred to, it's not 26,000, but it's more than 1,400 per month times 12. So I don't, Keith, when you have conversations with Dan or Greg, and if I'm not getting that conversation, because sometimes I feel like you guys are on a different page. This to me I congratulate you for agreeing, but now I find myself congratulating you on something differently phrased, because your statement had nothing to do with fees or charges to compensate that. Now, with that said, there's a different way for me to look at it. Because if we can be successful to get people to do the ACH, which is my goal, okay? However, the dust and coins settle out. And if we do that by giving a 3% on water, and if we re-look at that fee 6 months from now, or 12 months from now, to see, did that program work? Did we get those 800 people, or no, we got 600 of them, that would be successful. If we only got 100, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Okay,
I agree.
but I'm disappointed it took a year to get to this point right here. Because I thought we were moving forward. I thought, Dan, that's where you were going when we talked about the fees. But you got shut down because you want to talk about ACH. Now it's a different subject matter. And so I'm confused with that. Disappointed also.
Well,
Dan, do you have a comment?
well, I'm would like to do both myself, as a fee and a discount. And that's my, that's my idea of getting there the fastest.
Right.
Because it puts pressure on both ends, like, well, here I can get a savings, or here I'm gonna get a charge, I'd rather get a savings, can we look at it 6 months and the thing about, if we have a fee on there, that always promotes people to go with ACH. Because that to me is being paid, I pay through ACH, I'm paying my, part of the charge of the credit card, or the $2 or whatever, is being paid by everyone. It's getting paid by the people who are paying with ACH, and I don't agree that we should pay somebody else's, miles and points. That's what I've said that in the past. I don't want to pay for someone else's airline tickets or something, so that's just how I think. I think if they want to use their credit card, that's fine, but it's going to cost a little bit more. If to promote the ACH, here's a discount because it's going to save staff time, which other companies have said it saves staff time by not having to process checks and cash. So I think the 3%, looking at that number of 8,000 to 30,000 is probably going to what we'll save in staff time. And on the other hand, the fee covers the fee. It covers the cost that we're incurring from that, which is the 14 to 20. Whatever it ends up being, it should be fluid as people switch. So my proposal is, my motion would be one credits.
Okay, so let me. Couple of quick comments. Number one, when we talked about ACH back in the day, we began promoting it, put up signs, put something on the website, try ACH. So we started promoting that. Just putting the word out, I don't think has made a huge difference. I think it's made some. We all agreed that that's the way to do it. We didn't put any real muscle behind it. We didn't put any, as I said before, we didn't put a carrot out there to encourage people to do it. We just let them know it's available. So we didn't really have any call to action. So what we're doing now is saying, I think what we're doing now is saying, here's a program, 3%, to encourage you to think about doing this now, because it's important to save you some money. Not only save you some money, it will save us, I hope, a significant amount of time in the office. It's not like I'm trying to get rid of anybody in the office staff, because they have plenty to do, but I think it'll just make a difference in our office. Doing that is pretty straightforward in terms of what do we need to do first off as a commission, but as an organization. If we give Keith the direction, we're going to do this figure out the arithmetic and get it in place ASAP, he can do that. That's not complicated. That's an arithmetic chore. I mean, he's gonna have to figure out taxes for everybody, but he can do that. Doing a fee against the credit card is a little bit more complicated because it changes the arithmetic. It's not straight stuff. We have to tell them we're gonna do this, we're gonna get a new rate. How is that gonna affect? Now it's not gonna be $2 anymore. So we've got to put that thing, if we're gonna do that, that has to be put in motion and give us some time to figure out what that really means for our customers. If it's a percentage or if it's a flat rate, or are we gonna have, we've got 3 people processing stuff for us. We have Complete Merchant Solutions, which is the Visa card processor. We have Neon Link that handles all of the translations of that through the bank. And then we have Vericheck, which handles all of the, and I don't know, help me with this. What is Vericheck's just out there confirming checks are
They
okay?
do the electronic checks. They do the electronic checks.
They deal with electronics. So we got all these different things going on and people charging us for processing. So if somebody goes on ACH in a direct ACH way, then Vericheck is kind of out of the loop there. Okay. If they go direct, and there's a difference here, and I don't know if everybody's aware, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's 2 different kinds of ACHs. Somebody can go online and set up the ACH so that it goes from their bank to our bank. We get a charge for that. Okay. If they send the ACH with the application that the ladies give them when they apply, then there's no charge on that. That's a direct thing that they set up
Kathy handles
with.
all that.
Kathy handles that direct with Bremer. So that's really the way we want to do it. I don't think we want to discourage them from doing ACH on the web. If they want to do that, that's fine, but we really prefer to have them do it.
We try to keep the message simple.
Yeah. So if we decide to go with a fee in addition to the program that Mr. Erickson has talked about, we need to figure out what that's going to be first, because that's going to change the whole ballgame. Nothing changes if we decide to have a 3% rebate on their water bill. The water bills are going to be the water bills, and we can put the numbers together and we can do it on the box. I know you're enjoying this conversation.
Yes,
It's killing you to have to leave right now. But
I have another
thanks for being here.
scheduled appointments.
If we're going to go ahead with a fee for credit card charges, then we have to say, okay, before we say ready, set, go, we have to know what that number is going to be. So I'm disappointed that those folks couldn't get back to us with that number. They've had time. Anyway, that's my consent. I don't think that should hold up putting the rebate program together. I mean, that can be done whether or not we have a fee. It can be done and we can go forward with that. But that can become part of our January 1st. Here's what's going to happen. Well, that's my 2 cents. I mean, I'd like to make a motion on the.
I'm just going to type this out just so I'm clear as to what
We do a 3% rate reduction on water when people use the preferred method of payment, which is ACH.
Okay. Any conversation about it?
Is there part 2 or that's a?
No, just, that's just for
For now, this is what I said.
For now, yeah, because what I want, another, I might make another motion, but I need some more information because when Mr. Butcher is saying he's not sure it's legal to charge. I want an answer to that at the next meeting, so we know what's legal to charge.
Okay, so you want me to contact our attorney?
I want to find out if it's, I mean, whatever, I'm researching on Google is telling me it's legal to charge up to 4% in the state of Minnesota for credit card fees.
Correct.
So
That's true. You can, what that means is if a credit card company is charging you 5%, you are capped at 4%. So in Minnesota, you, no matter what the credit card companies charge you, you can only charge.
Right. I want to know what what is
Yeah.
legal for us to charge
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
but before,
I will contact our
before I
attorney.
make that motion. But for now, I think we can settle this part of it with the motion of the 3%. But I do want to have, I don't want to make a motion on something that could be illegal. That's, I guess that's.
Well, and that's been my frustration, because it's been, I think, very clear that Kathy and Keith have been against this since day one. And to the point, Keith, I mean, very blunt here, that, you know, you would share information when you needed to, but you can go through the minutes if they're written down. Every meeting there was, I don't have that information, I'll get it. And then, you know, that's why it took 12 months to get to where we are. And now we don't have more information again. So now we got to get more information. That has been a repeat scenario for months. On purpose or not, that's what it's been.
I'm sorry you feel that way. We have staff and myself have been very clear from day one that our fee for credit cards is $2 per transaction. We have always stated that. We have always stated the concern that we have that we may find ourselves in trouble if we charge more than that, because then what our fees are. We have been consistent on that this whole time.
I agree on that point, but there's other lagging comments and fees and questions that makes this commission pause. And I think that's not quite fair. I think if there's information out there, we should get it. It shouldn't be an underlying coup to, well, if we can drag this out, then it can be postponed.
I don't want to make a motion based on the word may be illegal or may not, you know.
I understand.
I want, is it, is it or isn't it? I guess that's where I'm. I don't want to vote or make a motion or anything on something that may be illegal. I want to know if it's legal, then it's legal. If it's not, it's not.
That has been my chase since day one, but I never get the finite answer that I'm requesting. And what I heard now is that 4% is okay, and you agree it's okay, but we can't charge that. But the
All I'm
state
doing
minutes says,
all I'm doing is confirming what Dan has read in statute, which is Minnesota law says you cannot charge more than 4% for a credit card fee. That, and again, I'm not a part of this is I'm not a lawyer. So,
Right.
you know, if you want a legal opinion, then I have to call up Kayla. She starts the clock, you know, and she will do whatever research we ask of her to do. And I'm happy to get that. But the Minnesota statute is stating simply that anybody who charges a convenience fee to their customers cannot charge more than 4%. It doesn't state that it's actually it's pretty silent in that statute as to what you can charge in relation to what your expenses. Only that, like I said, if you have a credit card that's charging you 5%, you can't charge 5%. You are capped at 4%.
It doesn't say if you're charged 3%, you
Does
cannot
not.
change, you
It's
can
saying-
only charge 3%.
It is just a hard ceiling to say you can never, no matter what, you can never charge more than 4%.
I mean, I get it, like you said, if you're getting charged 10, you can only charge 4.
Right.
But if you're being charged 3, it doesn't say you can only charge 3.
It does not, no.
Really?
Because most places are charged around 2%, so 4% they're doubling what they're charged.
Right. That's, I
Correct.
find that strange that it doesn't,
Yeah,
that it doesn't
Yeah.
say
And we're not even.
your rate at no more than 4.
I mean, our numbers weren't even talking that close. We're talking $2.40, which has got to be less than, you know, and that's the percentage of their total bill. You know. Yeah.
so
So we can.
that's the motion.
Since the motion is really to separate these two things. And
Yeah, right,
And
because
move-
because we could change either one of those two things at a later date as things are, you know, as we look back on what happened with it, what the, that's why I like two different motions, besides the fact that I want to be clear on the legalities of that charge before we make one, I think that's all I'm doing, and I don't believe it's legal, but I'm not, I believe it's legal, but I'm not an attorney either, so. Okay.
So then I go back to what is this actually going to cost us? And that's your report, your formula that you created.
Mhm.
And we don't know the answer to that because we don't know the reaction to this offer. I mean, it's going to be somewhere between here and here.
Correct.
I mean, do we need to call an attorney? Can we just call Black's County and see what they charge? I mean, it should be, why would it be any different than what they charge for a fee at Black's County? Michelle said that when
Well,
they charge a fee up there, people always come out with their checkbook.
Again, the question isn't what fee are they charging? The question is what fee are they charging in relation to what their expense is? That's the question. I can call them up and ask them what their fee is, but if you talk to the clerk and say, well, but how much is your cost? You just have to find the right person internally to answer.
And if they say $3, but our cost is $2, then what's your response? Go to jail?
I mean, all I can tell you is how I've been advised, the information that I have, I'm sharing that with the commission. You guys have to decide. What you want to do.
To my understanding, this just became separated today. And if you guys have been looking at it separate the whole time, which I don't think.
I have, that to me, if I have, it's two different. I wanted to do both. So.
And I guess that's why I thought it was looking at one. Then this should have been listed separately on the agenda as two separate items, not ACH discussion. I mean, back when Keith, you didn't even want it on there. And you said, I don't know why it's on there, Rick, what do you want? I mean.
Well, this is your top, this is the commission's.
But we're
topic.
talking about two different things. We're talking about a transmission and a motor, not the same.
It's the commission's prerogative for what you want on the agenda. However you phrase it, I can put it on the agenda.
I don't like the politics of it, put it that way.
Well, part of that might be my fault, because I have always thought of it as two different things. Promoting, when Dan came up with the ACH promotion. This is a great idea. This is a wonderful idea. We need to promote. And this is your deal. This goes back to.
And that's why I'm wondering, when did it change? And it only changed when Dan introduced it 2 months ago, right? I mean, it's a couple of months ago, give or take.
Yeah, but the difference was, what Dan proposed was a methodology. All we were doing prior to that was we put up signage, we put information out there on how to do it. We make people more aware of the ACH as possible. And we wouldn't have done that if you had brought it up.
Right.
Okay, so we got the ball rolling there. What Dan added to that was a carrot. Here's a motivation. I'm really trying to kick the game on a little bit.
I guess I could amend my motion and put this to bed right now, I think. Motion PPU offers a 3% rate reduction on water charges when customers use PPU's preferred method, the ACH. And charges a convenience fee of $2.40 per transaction. Convenience fee of a maximum of $2.40 per transaction. Or the highest amount allowed by law.
Motion has been made.
So does that make sense? It won't exceed $2.40 per transaction. If we find out that the law doesn't allow that much, then it's $2 or.
I would just change one word. It's your motion, but the word maximum is confusing. When you say we're not going to charge you more than 240, but we're going to charge you higher.
Not to exceed, maybe instead not to exceed.
I would just take the word maximum out, the convenience
Just
fee of.
convenience fee not to exceed $2. Not to exceed $2 or the highest amount below by law. So
I find it confusing when you're saying not to exceed. It's your motion, Dan.
well, yeah, I want to make sure that it's.
Okay,
clear.
but if I was gonna make that clean, I would say, charges of convenience fee of $2.40 per transaction or the highest allowed amount. Because it will exceed it if the law allows the highest.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I would just take out the exceed, the convenience fee of.
Or the highest amount. Well, then that might mean that it could go higher.
Well,
I
but
don't
that-
want it to go higher.
But
I don't
that's
want-
what you're saying with by law, the legal amount by law.
Yeah, but what he's saying is if the law allows $3.40, are we going up?
So
No,
it'll
but we
be
have that right to.
law by law, whichever is lower is what I'm looking at. Right? So would you put that whichever is lower? Because whether it's, say that by law, we can only charge $2, then that's what we would have to be at. If it's,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the law is at this current moment, we can only charge a convenience fee of $2.
That is what I understand.
right, so, which,
So you want the maximum back in. You're
yeah,
trying to, you want to cap it at 240.
right.
So
If 240 is what we can charge, then I think it should be 240. If we can't, then it's that.
so then that's how I read that. So if we run into the problem charging
240,
240, then
That's
I
it.
reduce it until we're not the mileage.
right.
But it does not exceed $2.40.
Then that, to me, that makes me comfortable that we're not going to do something that's not.
Or we could do instead of local, or what if we did? The maximum would be $2.40 per transaction as allowed by law. Does that help clean that up?
That makes sense to me.
No, that language makes more sense. Because otherwise it was contradicting.
Okay,
That's a little bit.
I get what you're going for, Jeff. But let me take one more attempt to clarify. Given our current charges, $2.40 would be illegal because we're currently charged $2 and we're not allowed to charge more.
So under Dan's motion, if I got a legal opinion that said that you can only charge $2, then I change it to $2 and we move forward without a new commission motion. Yeah. But yeah,
It's Mr. Erickson's motion, I'll leave it. I'm just concerned about. the language.
Yeah, your understanding of that is trying to
Yeah.
arbitrate it.
So there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried 2-1. Okay. That completes 8D. Is there any new business?
sir.
Hearing none. I would entertain a motion for adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All same sign.